Hello, friends. Hello. We are doing something a little different today. We don't have somebody else to interview. Darcy and I are going to speak about one of our favorite topics, which is death and dying. Darcy, do you want to talk about the theme around this today?
Absolutely. So we talked about this before and really bringing this human element into what it means to go through life transitions and what I reference as the big transition. There's so many others that lead us to that. And that's so much of the work that we do at HCS and also on a personal level. So one of the themes and topics that's come up so much more recently is how to find meaning, how to connect with purpose, and then feel peace during some of these transitions, whether we're actively in them, supporting someone who's in a big transition, or, uh, you know, in our professional life, because all of us are touched by this in some way, whether it's the active dying process, talking about what's coming later, or like being in the world right now. We are living in a time of incredible transition. So, in some way, we are all impacted, and bringing some healing into that just feels really important.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for me, reflection on those types of transitions can actually create more meaning and joy in my day to day, which people are always kind of shocked by. I mean, of course, you can kind of freak out and like be anxious about it, but ultimately, all of us are dying every day, right? Just a little bit. We're, getting closer, and to be able to drop in um, and have some control, not in when we're dying, but control and the ability to map out a game plan for ourselves, our loved ones, our furry friends, all the things that come along with it. It feels really empowering and sometimes a space where people feel disempowered. And that's why I love the work that you're doing, because I feel like people that work with you are feeling empowered in the process, um, in being able to organize, even have conversations about it. So I appreciate that piece. Do we want to just share a little bit with the audience about a little bit about the work that you've been doing, as we open up more discussion around this?
Yeah. So, as many know, I am just delighted to be on this podcast, most episodes, a creative healing journey with all of us, and director of outreach and coach in Los Angeles with HCS, Hirschman Clinical Services, and get to work with a lot of our teams and clients and many of you who are listening and that we see at local events. And more recently, we formally brought in the element of life planning, future planning, and end of life planning. And those terms can be used one or interchangeably. I also am a death doula. And what that means really is that I hold space for conversations and practical support with planning for what's coming later. Whether somebody is looking decades ahead or are currently in a process where they're dealing with some health issues, maybe there's been an emergency and need to have more supports in place or make a big change. And how this is different than a coaching role is that there are a lot of details that are very specific that need to be looked at earlier and moment to moment when we're talking about this big transition. And there are a lot of logistics that having someone who's a little bit more specialized for can be really comforting around, almost like a party planner. Like I think of, there's a lot of things that can be looked over that actually could, air quote, make or break the party. Uh, either have it be really stressful if they're not taken care of or super enjoyable because they're handled.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of what I do and what we're bringing into Hirschman Clinical Services.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I think that it's been really helpful to families to know that there are resources available to kind of begin those discussions as they look ahead to think about their loved one who might be struggling with a addiction or mental health or eating disorder issue now, knowing full well that there's a huge possibility that a lot of them will get better, will go, be stronger in their recovery, and then others that are unfortunately struggling a bit more and trying to figure out a game plan when they're not here and who's going to be of support to them and oversight and things of that nature. But I know that we recently co-facilitated a nurturing networking events this last weekend. We're recording, what is it, June 10th right now, but you guys will be hearing it in a little bit. And we had the opportunity to bring colleagues together. And folks are really talking about these issues and they're craving conversation around it. And I think it was a really good timing for you, Darcy, to kind of, chime in on in different areas that you were, speaking to. And I think we were both very touched with the openness that people were sharing around their challenges with some of these issues.
Definitely the vulnerability that showed up was really an honor to be around. And that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about normalizing conversations where there is vulnerability, where there's, maybe questions with no answers. That's often where these conversations start. And uh, the shift into peace or feeling uh, a sense of groundedness when the world can be and feel pretty shaky actually comes through the connection, that these conversations are how the connection happen, and then connecting with tangible action. Um, and one of the themes that was showing up that I absolutely relate with is the heaviness and the anxiety that we travel with when we're holding all of this alone. Because there's certain topics that don't I don't really know where they live. And that's why this area is being built out also with us, not only for clients, but also for colleagues and community. Because these conversations don't necessarily live in a therapeutic space. They don't live in, a doctor's office necessarily, but they really matter.
Mhm.
And one of the things that stood out from the events that we had that, they're nurturing and networking are really the intention was how people left and some of the responses that they were sharing out the door or over the next couple of days by text and email of just appreciation. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't realize how much I needed that.
Mhm.
And I was touched by that. And I'm also really paying attention that where can we bring an avenue to access peace? And sometimes that comes in the simplest of ways that really matter. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you and I relate to so many different things that you're saying. And I've had so much loss, over the last 3 to 5 years, between my father and grandmother. And I have so many colleagues now that are losing their family members. And I think there's a lot of preparation that can be done. And then there's also not, right? You can't really prepare for what you're going to feel. Um, but I think the gift is the preparation of what legacy is left. for the individual and how they map that out. And I'm seeing that, the differences with talking to certain colleagues and kind of how it's unraveling, how much planning their loved one had done prior to their passing. It really makes a difference for the people that are still living. Um, it could create a lot of chaos, and it should be really a celebration of life, and I think that's an important element that I think people are forgetting. We were just, meeting with someone recently, um and the mom was not even sure. Like, she's like, no, don't bother having a celebration of life. And I'm like, what? That doesn't, that didn't even click to me. And that would even happen. She's like, well, who's going to host it and what is it going to be and all these things. And that is an interesting space to participate in your own celebration of life, which I'm very much about. I don't know where you stand, Darcy. Would you want to participate in your celebration of life and like
Oh,
voicing?
absolutely. In my advanced directive, which is basically a summarized version of living will and where things are and some personal messages, I put in a few suggestions and a message specifically to the three people who will immediately be contacted or know how to access that. And the suggestions are how to bring playfulness into whatever happens. And um, my grandmother and I shared this, I think, in our conversation that we had on a handful of podcasts ago. I'm not sure. And, my grandmother, Valerie, she was one of the entry points into more of this more formal role. And uh, there were questions happening behind the scenes with seven of her living children, some of her grandchildren. I think she's like 18 grandchildren. Um, I I won't forget cousins, but I won't count them right now. I have a lot. Uh, there were a lot of questions behind the scenes happening about, well, what does she want? Where does she want to have it at this church or that church? Because she was so involved in different places, but no one was asking her directly. And so I asked,
Mhm.
and we planned everything. She chose her prayer card, which church she wanted to be. There were a few decisions. She said, I don't know. And I said, all right, would you like to delegate that to somebody if you knew it wouldn't be a burden? And she chose. So we had everything mapped out, and the softening that I saw in her and some of the joy that it brought was that talk about bringing meaning and finding purpose in something that is inevitable and has pain attached. She really enjoyed choosing her prayer card. She shared about a memory from her mother who didn't raise her when she was doing that. So, like the intimacy that it allowed for me as a loved one, but also in this role with her was really special. And I think about how much that can impact personal relationships for loved ones who are participating in parts of this process through conversation as well. It's very life enhancing.
Mhm.
So that's a long-winded answer to absolutely. And, I have money set aside for that also on a practical level.
And that, yeah, and that's what I was thinking too, is just the organization to be able to support your family to celebrate you the way that you hope creates ripple for you. It sounds like playfulness and joy, and I'm very much on the same page regarding my celebration because I have a very significant detailed plan. Well, there's more details that keep coming, but I know the location of where I want my ashes and where I want them to go afterwards and what kind of meal they're having and plate of food and desserts and all the fun stuff. Um, and I do think that they might be annoyed to have to fly to Los Angeles to do this. Depending on where they are in the world, maybe they'll be in LA, who knows? Um, but I do think it'll bring family together and people know that that's something that matters to me. And I think it'll be a really beautiful um, space. And I also love the idea, which I had already planned, is like being able to pay for it for your family. So they're not having to use their own resources. That's such a beautiful thing to be able to do. Um, and I love this idea of people celebrating their life and having voice in it and giving people ideas because it is so hard. Like the grief, hits in waves, and you're not always in a place to creatively think about how to celebrate your loved ones. So it's so nice if your loved one's already kind of done that for you, and then you can add bits and pieces if you want. So I wish more people would think about that. So I'm glad that you have that integrated into your planning with people, Darcy, that people can actually have some play fun with that.
There's something, oh, it's such an honor, and it's not for everybody, but everyone's going to have to deal with it. So
Mhm.
in that way, it's like breath work, right? Like learning how to breathe, which is breath work,
Mhm.
getting connected with what that even means for us. Not some people are like, no, I'm not into it. I'm like, well, we're doing it anyway. So if you want to bring intentionality in, you don't have to. But if you don't, what's the repercussion? And this is not scare tactic, but it's like I talked to someone this last week who's having panic attacks.
Mhm.
And I reintroduced the idea of getting connected with breath because it could be supportive and enhance their daily life. It's not a magic wand. Could it enhance? Very similar with the conversations we're having. So that includes daily details and it includes what's going to happen later. It doesn't have to be everything, but if we
Mhm.
avoid it, it only adds to anxiety, which robs us of the ability to live in alignment with our values today. And that's so much of what you're about, what we're about. And uh, and this is part of it. That the strategy can be overwhelming. And there's also, from what I see, a necessity to shine light on the soulfulness that gets to live here too. That this
Mhm.
is not just about logistics, it's about the heart. And it's not just about emotion, it's about some checklists,
Mhm.
and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And that's where we create a framework, and you have a framework to follow with us, and tangible will get handled, and
Mhm.
some relief gets to come in. And uh, when anxiety is lowered, gosh, there's space for so much.
Mhm.
So alleviating that, it's like let's just keep supporting each other in that, supporting each other, supporting our loved ones.
Well, and I do think, everybody has different complexities to their trusts, or maybe they don't even have trust, in terms of what they're leaving. And there does come a point of surrender,
Mhm.
right? Because you can't always cross every T because you never fully know, right, what's going on. And I think it's so important to get to a place where it's going to be enough. Like there's never going to be the most perfect plan, because you can't control all the factors, and I think that's how it is living in life, to expect that everything's going to be perfection at your death is just not, it's not real. But yet I do think the ease, and the lift of anxiety comes with that next level of surrender that I think that you do so beautifully when you're talking to people. This is not just about you getting through the paperwork, it's about holding space for people where they're at, um, and working their way through a lot of the intensity of the powerlessness of some of the situations that you can't really fully organize. Does that make sense?
Yes, and thank you. It's really humbling to be trusted with this, with you, with our team, with our clients, and this podcast community, because I find it to be really sacred. And
Mhm.
I don't take it lightly to be trusted with the vulnerability and anything that comes up. And also, I take it very seriously that this requires some very specific skill sets and practices to be able to navigate and field all of these details and hold what can feel really heavy and complex in
Mhm.
a way that um, I'm able to stay really present. And I've invested and I continue to invest in that because this really matters to me. You know, it really matters. And so it's a constant learning of how do we do that like anything else, like everyone in their roles and responsibilities. So uh, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be able to share it and hold space, for anyone who's seeking this to come and know you can come here and you can unload and bring your mess and throw all the puzzle pieces on the table and we'll flip them over and organize them together. It's none of us have to do this alone.
That is absolutely correct. And I'm glad that we don't. That would be quite overwhelming. But I'd love to continue it. We should do another podcast on the celebration of life, what that can feel like, examples, because I bet people are like, what are you talking about? What would I do? What would that look like? Um, and how to house that like in the full package of preparation. So I think that would be a really lovely thing to talk about next time, Darcy.
Deal. And I'm gonna actually make a shout out request to anyone listening. Doesn't matter when you're listening to this, day, time, year. Uh, Send a message on social media or email about what you want to hear about. Any questions you have, you can send in anonymously. We won't reference your name. But participate in this conversation with us because we know you're thinking about it. If you're listening to this, there's something on your mind, and we want to customize some conversations around what you're really curious about or where there's concern also. And we'll definitely keep this conversation going.
Absolutely. Thank you, Darcy.
Thank you. We'll talk next time.
Absolutely.